All right, today we are going to tackle two of the most important and, let's be honest, most confusing ideas in all of software testing: verification and validation. Seriously, getting this right is a total game changer, especially if you're trying to land a job. So let's just dive right in.
Now look at that. That is a pretty bold claim, isn't it? But you know what? It's not wrong. These two concepts are the secret key to so many interview questions. If you can absolutely nail this, you are way ahead of the competition.
So, let's cut right to the chase. If you only remember one thing from our time together today, make it this next part. This is what we call the golden rule, the one-liner that unlocks everything. So what is it? What's the magic phrase? Well, it all comes down to two little questions. They sound almost the same, but that tiny difference, well, that's where the magic is.
And there you have it. That's the whole thing in a nutshell. For verification, the question is, are we building the product right? See, it's all about the process, the method, the recipe. But for validation, the question is, are we building the right product? This is about the end result. Does it actually do what the customer needs? It's just one little word, but it changes the entire meaning.
Okay, so let's dig into verification first. The best way to think about this is like checking an architect's blueprints before the construction crew even shows up. We're looking at all the plans and documents to make sure they're solid before we start building.
And that's really the core of it. Verification is a static process. That means we're not running anything. We're just carefully reviewing all the paperwork, the designs, the requirements, to make sure everything makes sense and lines up.
So when we talk about what this actually looks like, it's things like this. You're sitting in a room, maybe, doing a design review. You're reading through a test plan. You're even doing a code review. But notice what all of these have in common. You are not actually running the software. It's all about analysis. And this, right here, is the absolute most important thing to remember about verification. The software is turned off. It's not running. If you're not executing code, you are doing verification. Simple as that. Let's make this real with a quick example. Imagine we're building a login feature. During verification, we'd grab the requirements document and ask questions. Does it say what a valid email address looks like? Does it define the rules for a strong password? Are all the error messages for a failed login actually written down? See, we're just checking the recipe. We haven't even started cooking. Okay, now let's flip the coin and talk about validation. The plans have been checked, the code has been written, and now it's time to fire up the software. It's time to actually taste the cake we just baked and see if it's any good. So, validation is a dynamic process. It's all about testing the real working product. We're trying to answer that big question. Does this software actually meet the customer's needs? Does it solve their problem? And the activities involved are probably the ones you think of when you hear the word testing. You know, functional testing, system testing, running all those automation scripts. This is the hands-on, click all the buttons and see what breaks part of the job. And here's the other side of that coin. If verification is defined by the code being off, then validation is defined by the code being on. You absolutely have to execute the software to perform validation. There's no way around it. Let's go back to our login feature. For validation, we're now in the actual application. We type in a correct email and password. What happens? Do we log in? Okay, now we try a wrong password. Does the right error message pop up? We're also checking things like the user interface and how fast it responds. We're testing the real thing. So here's a quick little cheat sheet to put it all together. You can see the contrast so clearly. Verification is static, it's done early, and it's focused on the process. Validation is dynamic, happens later, and is focused on the actual product. This also means finding a bug during verification is way, way cheaper to fix. Okay, so you get the basic difference now. That's awesome. But in an interview, they're going to throw you some curveballs to see if you really get it. So let's get you ready for those tricky questions that separate the pros from the beginners. But first, here's a super simple trick to keep it all straight, especially when you're feeling the pressure. Just think of it this way. Verification is the paperwork. Validation is the product work. Easy, right? All right, here we go. First tricky question. Can you do verification without doing validation? Think about the timeline we just talked about. Can you check the blueprints before the house is built? Yes, absolutely. In fact, that's how it's supposed to work.
Verification is all about checking the plans and requirements, and you always do that before the final product is built and ready to test.
Okay, question number 2. What about the other way around? Can you just skip all that planning and review stuff and jump straight to testing the final product? Well, technically you could, but it would be a disaster. If you don't do verification, you might build a perfect piece of software that solves the wrong problem. It's a verification failure. You built the product right, but you didn't build the right product.
And now for the answer that will really make you stand out. This is the senior level insight. Verification is about preventing defects. It's proactive. Validation is about detecting defects. It's reactive. Saying this shows you don't just know the definitions, you understand the entire strategy.
So let's put it all together. Here's your formula for the perfect answer. 1, start with a one-line golden rule. 2, give a simple example, like our login feature. And 3, explain the real-world impact with that pro-level line about preventing versus detecting defects. You do that, and you've nailed it. So there you have it. You're now equipped to handle any question about verification and validation. But I'll leave you with one last thing to think about. Knowing that one process prevents problems and the other one finds them later, which one do you think saves a project more time and money in the long run? The answer to that question is why we do this in the